Yeah.
So it's just waiting on the meeting and contact you now.
Okay.
So please wait.
Yeah.
Meeting host will let you know soon. Okay.
So you should be in. Make sure that
Okay. Hold on. Okay, so it's saying connect.
There you go.
Okay, I see you.
All right.
Let me turn this volume up, make sure I got the volume straight. Hold on 1 second. Where did I do the volume at? Okay, so showing computer audio.
Okay, can you hear me?
There you go. Got you.
Okay, cool. So how you been, brother? I see you got the logo. I got another one of those for you.
Yeah, I put it up, man. I this is what I'm going to use for now until I get a Live Inspired logo and backdrop and all that done.
Okay. You gonna get a different logo?
Well, I have the Live Inspired logo.
Yeah, I have. Okay.
I have that, but I just haven't. I'm just now deciding that I'm going to start doing this type of thing now. So
okay.
Just, raise that up a little bit. Good. So until then, we'll use the Williams Group.
Okay.
And we'll get, because you can do like a Zoom background, but it's not like a green screen. It's just an image. Yeah. So you go in and out with that, and I could use that, but it's too weird when you go in and out, and so I'll just choose not to do that. And this is all practice anyway. So man, but everything is going well, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. I'm just saying, hold on 1 second. I'm gonna put these earphones in to make sure we do all right with this time. You still hear me all right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
All right. Cool, man. Well, appreciate you being on here, and it's good to see you. Because we ain't seen and talked in a while.
Right, and the quarantine.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Man, this quarantine is crazy. We've been trying, managing it just like everybody else, but it's been something.
Yeah, it definitely. But it's taught us something, Hopefully it's taught everybody something, whether it's slow down, whether it's things can change, rapidly. The unexpected can happen upon you, whatever. It's a lot of different things. So it's been interesting, though. I will say that. For everybody in their own way, it's very interesting.
It is, and I agree with you as far as slowing down, resetting for some of us. Some of us have to change our shift where we were headed, and moving into something totally different. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people that were considered the least of these, some of these individual essential workers that we took for granted, not taking them for granted now.
No. No, and it is a lot of people wishing that they were essential.
Absolutely.
Or they thought that they were essential, and like I said, it's interesting times we find ourselves because we see so many different things. It just depends on the angle from which you see it.
Yeah.
If you're not benefiting, then you're seeing it from a very different angle than somebody who's like, hey, I'm in position or I'm essential, to continue on. And then others have shifted quickly and adjusted.
Mm-hmm.
To the needs of what's going on. So it's like the folks that surf that know the wave is coming, they start paddling, and those that try and catch the wave when they see it, it's like you already almost missed the wave.
Right. I hear you. So, man, I do appreciate you taking some time, and we're going to go through this again. This is all practice for me.
Okay.
So this is not live. I'm recording, but it's not live. We're not on Facebook Live, any of those things.
Okay.
Eventually, I would like to get there because that's where really it's going to make a lot of sense.
Okay.
Before we even get started, the idea really, and I think I shared this idea with you in the past, and things that I've been talking about for a number of years. But really, I'm trying to give small business owners, individual entrepreneurs, just basic individuals. I want to give them a platform to be able to share their experiences, highlight their inspirational moments, their encouraging thoughts, how they are moving to help others. I want to highlight that.
Okay.
And whether that's going to be through highlighting their products and services, if it's just going to be them having a platform to give their testimony about, things that's going well in their life and the struggles that they have. Now they're in a better place to encourage somebody else. That's kind of what I'm trying to create here.
Okay.
So that's why we're going to do it. And it will be really, as I do it online, when I do live events or live interviews, things like that, it's going to be very different because I'll be able to showcase, and you'll see how I try to do it here.
Okay.
Again, this is practice. You'll see, but I'll try to bring up your website. I'll try to bring in some things, and eventually I want to be able to do almost like a QVC type of thing, where we talk, then we bring in your products, or we bring in your website, or we bring in something and we sell. As long when the audience gets big enough, that's kind of what I want to be able to do. So we'll go to your website, go through it, and say, we're looking at think about it. Yep. And here's where you can buy it. Let's buy it right now. And that's kind of where I'm moving towards. So this is the start of that.
Okay. Sounds good. That makes a lot of sense. So, key word I would say is you're doing and you're building. You're not trying anymore, right? Yeah. Because when we get what we aim at, right? So if we aim at trying, then we just get more attempts to try. But if we're doing, like I'm on here with you, you got everything set up. So it's just getting better and better and better. But trying was in the beginning when you thought about what you were going to put together to assist others, you know what I mean, and create a vehicle for yourself to present others, right?
Right.
So I see it in the doing stage as opposed to the trying stage.
Well, very well then. I'll take that. I'll agree with that.
Yeah. So omit that trying, man. You just doing.
We're in the infancy stages of the doing.
Doing and doing better. Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic. So that's what we're going to do.
Okay.
So, all right. So let me go ahead and get this, and we'll start.
Okay.
So, welcome everybody to Live Inspired. This is Kirk Williams with you today, and I'm so excited because I have one of my very good friends with me today, Johnnie Williams. Johnnie is an encouragement specialist, and he has been doing phenomenal things throughout his lifetime, and he's been working with kids, speaking to over 1 million kids over the world, internationally, here in the States, and we're so excited to have him participate with us. He's been one of the inspiring individuals in my life, and I truly appreciate everything that he has. He's an author. He just wrote a book, so we'll get into talking about his new book. But he's been doing such a great thing, and it is my pleasure to welcome Johnnie Williams. Johnnie, welcome.
Thank you so much, Kurt. I appreciate it. A lot of those sentiments, I could say the same about you, brother. But it's been almost 11, 12 years now that we've been friends and brothers in business and service to others. So it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm happy to be a part of the new platform.
Hey, right on, man. Yeah, so it's been like 11 years. So, it's funny because when we got together, and I want to get into some of your story too, because it's very inspiring in and of itself. But, when we met, it was, I say it was a divine moment because it was, correct me if I'm wrong, but I was one of the first people to meet you when you came into Vegas. Is that right?
Right, almost right off the plane, because you actually called me before I even got to Vegas. I was in Hamilton, Ontario, about 30 miles outside of Toronto, just wrapping up some of my work in Canada, and you called with regards to your services and college readiness programming, and said that you had some work for me and some things that we could collaborate on. So I knew that when I arrived here to the new home community, that I already had boots on the ground waiting, and my first assignment was already enlisted. So I was excited to get here, and I'm glad that the chance meeting of you just mentioning what you do to my brother Jerome on the basketball court transpired into him mentioning, that his brother was doing some similar work. And that caught your attention. I'm not sure if he knew how much it caught your attention, but enough so that you contacted me personally. So that's how our relationship started. I heard your voice before I saw your face.
Yeah, that's really cool. And basketball has always been a big part of my life. And connecting with Jerome, your brother played in the NBA.
Hmm.
That was great, but I think you're right. I don't think he really knew the other side. It's not
Yeah,
just about basketball. Basketball is just one component,
yeah,
but we had a world of things that we could do outside of that, and it was great to connect with you in that
oh,
in that instance,
yeah.
and
Hmm.
even to create such a brotherhood now.
Yeah,
10, 11 years later,
most definitely.
really speaks to that. So, man, I appreciate you being on here in this new
Oh, no
platform
problem.
that we have with Live Inspired. And you actually were one of the ones that inspired this whole thing. So thank you.
Okay. Well, hey, you're welcome, but everything pollinates, so people inspired us. So we just pushed, iron sharpens iron, so from our conversations, from our meetings, from our travels together, our speeches together, our work together, I would hope that something would come forth as to how we begin to refine how we encourage people. Sometimes it's not always about the rah-rah, but sometimes it's about giving people a chance to share their story in a way that would promote them, but also inspire someone else as we inspired each other. So I think it's a really, really cool opportunity to be sitting here with you like this way.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And speaking of inspiring people that have inspired us, that have encouraged us, you are the encouragement specialist. That's one of your titles. Uh,
Yeah.
tell us, everybody that's watching, those that are listening on the podcast, tell us how you got here. So, give us a brief, description of how you got to where you are as the encouragement specialist. Excuse me. Somebody
Oh man.
encouraged you. Somebody inspired you. So, how did you get to this place?
I mean, I would say that as many people would mention, hopefully, my parents were what I consider professional givers.
Mm,
Before I became a professional speaker, my brother became a professional athlete. We were groomed by professional givers. And the first speeches that we heard and were inspired by were in the house.
mm,
Every mistake netted us an inspirational speech. Some parents yell just for the sake of yelling, mad
mm-hmm.
for the sake of being mad. Even if a child messes up, we're gonna mess up, right?
Right.
But for them, it was an opportunity to speak, right? And they actually tabbed their presentations. I call it. That was speech 101. What was that, babe? That was speech 207. Me and my brother standing so long that we forgot what leg we were standing on. So they definitely were the folks that encouraged us.
Oh,
One to serve without even knowing, because they say do what I say, but often we do what we see someone do.
right.
So when you see someone walk their talk, you see someone serve, you see someone uplift others, you see someone lend $1 when they only had $2 in the bank account, you see that kind of selflessness, then you find yourself later in life modeling your parents and what you saw. So if you saw selfishness, it's easy to look at yourself and be like, man, I didn't realize I could be so selfish. But if you
Mm,
saw selflessness, then you'll look in the mirror and be like, man, I look back at my actions and now we consider that part of our legacy. And you see a lot of selflessness, but you also see just your parents in the mirror. You see the modeling,
right.
and sometimes we look in the mirror and need to make some adjustments. And other times we look in the mirror and say, I still got some work to do because they still out there serving, and that, in that case, for me and my brother, Jerome and Joshua, that can be said. They're still leading the way and showing me what life in retirement looks like and what service looks like in retirement, things like that. So that's definitely where I got encouraged. But it was right here in Vegas that I decided, after years of motivating and being titled by others, because you get
Mm,
introduced. By the time I arrived here and met you, I had already given over 1,000 speeches.
mm.
So I had been introduced all kinds of ways: motivational speaker, inspirational speaker, Jerome's brother. You know what I mean?
Right.
The brother from the United States, whatever it was. I got a lot of introductions, and it was always other people. But I never forgot that when people would hear that I was a motivational speaker, people already had their own impression based on prior experience with other speakers, whether
Mm-hmm.
they spoke from a very humble standpoint or from a very authoritative standpoint. So I found that if I was connected to that of being an inspirational speaker or motivational speaker, people had this preconceived position that I came to talk but not listen.
Sure.
So we was walking down the strip one day. I decided to take a walk instead of the mountains out here in Vegas. I decided to just walk down the strip one day, and I'm just walking by myself, and it just hit me. I cannot say that I motivated 1 million kids. But I can say I spoke to over 1 million kids, right?
Right.
I'm like, So when I say I'm motivating people, I can't say if I motivate, only they can say that. I can't say that inspired, only they can say that. So I said, but what can I claim? I said, I did offer encouragement. And I said, so I'm having a talk with myself. I'm hoping nobody's watching, because I'm having a talk walking down the strip with myself. And it was about the time I got to the Bellagio, and I wanted to dip inside to get some AC. And I got on a little tram or something like that. And coming off of that, it hit me. I said, you know what? You specialize in encouragement. You are the encouragement specialist. So I had to go and look it up. So by the time I left the Bellagio, I already had looked up online. There was nothing online under encouragement specialist other than something that happened with Alibaba years ago, where they hired they had a job posting that they got a lot of flack for, where they were looking for an encouragement specialist, but they were looking for a certain type of person to encourage their male employees to come to work on time. We'll leave it at that. Okay. And a lot of people didn't like the way that ad went out, so they quickly took it down.
Okay.
So basically they put it out there and they took it back and left it for me. So proud to say now, years later, now you type in encouragement specialist online, it'll bring you directly to me. So sometimes it serves a purpose to self-title yourself, because oftentimes we try and find ourselves in lanes of service and career titling that, validate us, that appoint us to some level of stature or status. And sometimes I find you need to appoint your own title and bring a sense of purpose and resonance to it yourself. So I'm proud of that moment that came into my mind. I didn't just let it pass,
Right. That's good. That's good. Because, it's sometimes, and, when I was younger, I would always, by being an athlete, that was the title that I was given. I was a basketball player, especially when you're good, and you start to excel in certain things. That's what they label you as.
Yep.
And I can remember, from being in the 8th grade all the way up to, when I got out of college and started trying to play professional basketball, I was always labeled as this basketball player. And I honestly, man, I hated that.
I hated that.
Like, there's so much more to me than being a basketball player. So I was trying to do everything to prove
to shake that label.
To shake that label. I was not just, I love basketball, but that wasn't all me. I had so many other things. And I think a lot of people can find themselves in that same characteristic, that same, exactly. A lot of people, whether it's, being defined by their work. That's a big thing that's happening even right now. A lot of people have been defined or even define themselves as what they do, not who they are.
Who they are.
That's kind of what I found myself in. So really cool to hear how you went through that process. By being, you're a great speaker and everything, but that didn't define you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, most definitely. It's an opportunity to refine yourself, because you can say a speaker, but what do you speak about? And do you still speak about the same things you were speaking about when you started back in 98? No. Were they speaking about the same things in 2008? No. I can go back to that first message, and that's what's really cool, and see it's still relevant, because I began using basketball, that same vessel that everywhere I went, every time I got on a plane, you're a basketball player, you're a basketball player. And it would drive me crazy, because at the time I was a children's author, but no one ever assumed that, I was helping to manage the PR and public relations of my brother's career, but nobody asked that. They would ask, of course, you're over 6 feet tall. He's, 6'9", almost 6'10". So of course it would resonate. Are you all basketball players? And then I'm like, oh man, well, I guess he is a basketball player, but he's also a Georgetown graduate with honors. See, those things don't often equate. So like you, I was driven to sell education through his career. I was driven to really promote that aspect, because it was him pursuing his education that gave him an opportunity to further, his basketball career. and he risked the basketball career by making sure he graduated on time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not to the suggestion of many people in the basketball industry that were like, hey, you just take the basketball opportunity. Don't worry about the class. But he's like, no, I need to walk away from Georgetown with a degree.
Right.
So he took the gamble on himself and on his education and still got the professional basketball career, but then walked away with a career that was based around his efforts to inspire students to inflate their mind, basically.
Sure,
And a big part of that was my responsibility in finding the connection between basketball and life so that we could then transcend the very thing you're talking about. Because when I first met you, we didn't have gray in our goatee.
That's true.
And you were a bad man on that basketball court. But at the same time, you were managing a multi-million-dollar budget with regards to college readiness grants here in the state. So people weren't seeing that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they say, oh, you're a basketball player, but not understanding that you already had your master's degree and it mastered the art of managing resources to move young people from where they found themselves, first generation college students, to college. So it's a lot more to you. It's a lot more to that Williams group. It's a lot. And I think we can sit back and wait for the world to assess us more critically or openly, or we can be very advantageous and do just what any other brand has done and market yourself how you wish to be seen.
Sure.
And present yourself and your products and your services in such a way consistently that people begin to see you first as different. And then they maybe begin to see that it's not so different than what they've seen elsewhere, but also people who might appear similar to you are just as different in their own unique and special way. So I think that this is another step, you know, in changing the narrative, because we're not on a basketball court talking about life. We're sitting in our offices. So we're not in our regular offices. We got our home offices.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So we're definitely bouncing a different way. But as we said on the court, you got to be able to go right and left. You got to have a game on and off the court. So we were students first, athletes second. And now we're just students in the game of life and trying to help other people learn and be inspired, you know, by their mistakes and by others to see what they can do.
Phenomenal. That's phenomenal, man. I agree with you 100%. And one of the ways that you have chosen to do that, to help others, to inspire others, to encourage others, is actually through a book that you decided to write. And I have a copy right here. I got my copy right here. Something to think about. 369 steps to self-awareness. So this is, you know, man, these are things that you've said to me over the past, 10, 11 years. You put it down in a book, but tell us a little bit about that process, how you got to put that all together and how it's, what you're doing with that particular thing. Because it's phenomenal. So
I appreciate
how you do that.
I appreciate it. But something inside, and this is where everybody you should listen to that inner voice. And you're like, I should, maybe I can. Write it down. So when we would be talking and something would come out, but like, and you might say, Jay, that was deep what you just said. I would get on my phone and I would text it to myself. And later I would find a picture and I would post it on Twitter. The reason why I posted on Twitter is because I wanted to make sure that each of these little quote statements were about the same length. So when I wrote a book one day, which would happen to be almost 6, 7 years later, 1,000 quotes in, I can choose the first 369 of the quotes, right? But it all started with day by day. They came from real conversations where we were trying to talk about how we could inspire these kids and how we try to self-motivate ourselves and just talking just in general life. And it was like each of these quotes in this book has energy in it because none of them were just written to write a book. They were written at a time when they came with real emotion connected and a real thought that I figured would trigger thought in someone else. And I said, I cannot hold this back. And what was interesting is at the time, Twitter only allowed a certain number of characters. Mm-hmm. So I would not post a quote thinking that it was from me. I was just an antenna. If you understand what I'm saying, I was just an antenna catching energy. And every single quote came down to pretty much 0 characters. I would either sign off as JW, J.W, dot, but every single quote pretty much started coming down to zero. So then I knew that it was an ideal statement. I knew I had caught something because I could get this major point across in 1 to 2 sentences. And that was what I did. I didn't really advertise. I was, writing quotes on Twitter because it was just where I kept all my content.
Sure.
And even me now titling myself encouragement specialist, there was someone who encouraged me when I was ready to close that chapter. I think I was about 700 quotes in. The initial goal was just to come up with 100 quotes. And I was struggling at 13 quotes. But they just kept coming. And when I finally got to 99, I created the first prototype of Think About It. Matter of fact, I keep it right here in my office because I promised that I'd put that out. So I'll probably put this out like as a free ebook, right? So it looks like this is just what books look like, we're doing your book. It just looked like a regular presentation until it hits book form. It looks real, right. But it had to be real here first, right? So I wrote the first 99 quotes and they kept coming, but I already had the product, but the quotes kept getting deeper. And I'm like, whoa, now I'm not satisfied with the first quotes because quote 200 is so much deeper than quote number 15. So that really was how it started. And I realized also in the speaking industry, the listening of the audience was different in 98 than it was in 2008.
Yeah.
There was no smartphones in 98. And right around 2008, there was no apps. We were just coming through MySpace and Facebook was coming onto the scene. So when I arrived here, we didn't even have apps and smartphones were just emerging from the BlackBerry, now going more towards the Apple platform. So we get to this place now, we opt as if apps and phones were always like this, and they weren't. All these platforms and ways of providing service and being digital and talking to each other like this, man, this was stuff we saw on the Jetsons, on the cartoons on Saturday morning before we went to play basketball. You know what I mean? So all these things have emerged and changed. So the hard part was just continuing when I realized I hadn't really told anybody about where I was posting all these quotes. And here I'm looking, I got 700 quotes. And I'm like, nobody's engaging with them. I didn't tell anybody about them. And I'm not really ready yet. I'm not feeling inspired to write this book. But I know I will one day.
Sure.
And at the point that I said, this is my last quote, this is it, because nobody's really paying attention. I got to sit down now and figure out what to do with them. As I'm hitting the send button on that particular tweet, I started seeing I had some likes pop up on my screen in my little Twitter feed. And that was unusual because that's not generally where you get a whole lot of likes.
Right.
A lady by the name of Daisy began liking 4 or 5 quotes, then making comments. Oh my gosh, I can't believe these quotes are amazing. Who are you? I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, I'm ready to hit this button and be done. But let me at least respond.
Right.
And that dialogue turned into a friendship. But before it even got to that point, she issued a challenge. And I'm like, who is this challenge? Who is this woman from wherever she's calling from? Challenging me to keep writing quotes for another 2 weeks. I said, well, I'll see what I can do. Generally, they come like 1 a day, but they haven't been coming. She said, well, if they come 3 or 4 in a day, I want you to post all 3. I said, I don't do that. I post 1 a day. She said, I want you to break that habit and right? So lo and behold, another 400 quotes have come from her encouraging someone titling themselves as a encouragement specialist. So we all have moments where we need encouragement.
Yes.
We all can live inspired. And sometimes someone following somebody might be the very person inspiring them to continue. So sometimes people just read and sometimes people just watch this, right? And be like, oh, that was cool. No, send your comments. Share how it could be better. Share what you liked about it. Share what you got out of it. Because if we feel like we didn't get anything accomplished and serve any purpose, then we'll stop. And people are like, man, I got a lot out of that. But they'll tell us on the basketball court, I read your quotes all the time. Well, why don't you say something? Because I'm thinking I'm talking to myself. Right?
Man, I get that a lot. I've gotten that a lot of times. When I put stuff out, not as nearly as much as you did, but I was putting some things out on Facebook and Instagram. And you're right. The guys on the basketball court. I would play basketball every Saturday morning, and a couple of guys, hey man, I saw what you wrote, man. That was like, man, what? That's cool. But hey, I need to engage, and I think that's one thing we really need is to engage, because that engagement, that relationship, and even on a platform like this or on an Instagram post, Twitter feed, it helps build you up, but it also gives more people, and these algorithms with these different platforms, the more engagement you have, the more people start to see it. And when more people start to see it, they are the ones that can be encouraged, inspired, motivated, whatever, however you want to say it. More people can get that information, the more engagement. So thank you for sharing it, because a lot of people need that.
They need to hear that, but and that's the thing, unfortunately, is it's our initial tribe that we use to create that static momentum. So from nothing to something. We typically start with the people we know. Here's what I realized from a psychological side of things is, as we engage the people that we know, we're changing the way they see us. So sometimes they're in shell shock trying to figure out the Kirk that I know or thought I knew. I didn't know you think like that. I don't know what to say. I don't know how I feel about that. You just took my mind to another place. So I think sometimes people sit and they hide behind these computers as opposed to using them as vehicles to engage from a safe space and realize, hey, that's an interesting point. Can we talk offline? Or I'm gonna call you about that. But instead people go quiet. And that's when we need our initial core group. It's like the people on the train track. I don't know, back in the day, remember where they had two people on the train track? I won't be gender specific by saying two men, but let's say two people, right? One's on one side, the other's on the side. It looked like a little seesaw. And one pushed down, the other one went up. The other one pushed back down, the other one, and then the thing moved.
Yeah. That's
creating momentum from nothing. From two opinions. Two people can create momentum. And then more can follow. So I think people trying to make it don't realize that if you help me make it, I can help you make it. Right? I got a book, you got a show. We push, pull, push, pull, push, pull. Here comes the next guest. Here comes the next show. So people don't often realize that from nothing begets nothing, and something begets something. And that was the whole thing, is to get people thinking about these things. That was why the light bulb in the middle of the word think jumped out at people in the book. And also our dialogue I put out on Facebook. Oftentimes I am very creative, but I was like, it's not about what I see in regards to how this book is going to be presented to people. I want to present some covers that I have to decide between for this book. And, you saw it, the word think had the chess piece in the middle. Well, that to me is like, yeah, I think I play chess mentally. But my audience was like, whoa, that's kind of intimidating. But those folks that were more on the business side or feel like they're thriving in life, like, yes, life is chess. But folks more on the reactionary side and having a different lens to look at that was like, that's kind of aggressive. You see what I'm saying? If I'm playing reactionary life, then it's more like playing checkers. If I'm actually thinking 3-4 moves ahead based on position, blessing, grace, whatever you wish to call it, then that's chess. Some people can self-actualize and say, hey, this is my title. Well, then you say, I'm going to be the queen on the board. I'm going to be the knight, the pawn, the rogue, the queen. It's choosing. Some people's life has been positioned almost like it's been chosen for them. And a lot of those type of young people we've been working with, that's how we started working together. Because we want to give these young people a chance to self-actualize and self-title and label and lay out their own future and not necessarily continue a parental circumstance, whether rich or poor. There are no poor or rich kids. They just go home to parents of different social status. But when we learn to do what we see someone do, not necessarily do what they said to do, we often duplicate what our parents were and what they achieved and what their beliefs are. So we don't often think for ourselves. We think in relation to the relationships we're in, often holding back what we really feel and want to say, so people don't set sail without us because we're afraid to walk it alone. And that is something that I learned from basketball. It's a game you can work on by yourself and then reintegrate into the team concept. Yeah. You see, it's 5 individuals coming together as a team, but it still is 5 individuals, right? That had to work on their individual game. You improve as a team, but you do not improve as an individual just because you're on a team. That's right. You got to do your own work. And people got to be able to think individually. then we can come and vote collectively. But if we're just thinking as a group, which they call groupthink, then we can be pawned into what the group was groomed to think, because nobody's getting behind of why they think the way they think. Well, I'm a Democrat because my parents was Democrat and their parents was Democrat. But did you look at the agenda? Well, I'm a Republican because my daddy's a Republican. Well, did you look at the agenda? No, just you understand what I'm saying? So
kind of born into it. That's just just how we do things.
This is how we do things. But my thing is, no, there was a point in time where they didn't do that thing. Have you ever looked at the history of everything? From the holidays we celebrate to everything. No, we've gotten mentally lazy and the phones are smart, but what about the people? I remember a time when we had the house phone that was in the kitchen and you just were lucky if you had a 20-foot cord, you get some privacy.
That's right.
I remember you couldn't dial fast because you had to spin that thing and wait for it to come back around, right? So we came from an era where we got a chance to see technology take a quantum leap. But before they had creative apps, we could go create something to go outside and do. We could apply ourselves. And that's something that I think this time is really challenging us to do, is think of creative ways to re-engage. But at the same time, we got to make sure we don't over digitize our engagement in a way that we lose the touch, of interacting with each other.
Absolutely. And that's great. And that's one of the reasons why I want you to be a part of the show and talk about your, something to think about. And, you take things to several levels and layers. And that's why I want everybody to really consider purchasing a book, going to the website, getting some, merchandise, because it really is things that you can think about, ponder on. And he even has, and I'm going to show some people, the book, you have the quote, but you also have an area to write down some thoughts. And I think that's phenomenal.
That was very important. And I had to really, really contemplate that, because I knew that for some folks, they'd be like, well, you wrote a book and from cover to cover is 400 pages. But it's like, yeah, but you just put a quote on each page and a question, and then you put lines, space. I said, how many books, how many quote books, or books period, leave room for your thoughts? Some do. And those are pretty cool books when they have a little area where they have the little lessons where you can apply within chapter, and then here goes some work you can write down. And it's great to see that sometimes, because oftentimes we're busy as authors just pushing out content. But I find that 80-20 rule applies, where 20% of the page is something that I'd underline, and 80% was fluff. And I have to read 80 just to see if there's any more than 20 I'm really getting. And then I go to the next page. So what I decided to was write a book with no fluff. Every single page, every single quote was written specifically to get you to think about something. So it is a lot within that little statement that opens your mind up like fireworks, 4th of July. But I didn't want to leave you there and say, oh, that's a good quote, and flip the page. So I decided to leave room for people to write. But I said, let me start with not a question, but a writing prompt. I'll start the engine. So that has been something that has been a major difference between the ebook, because a lot of us are digital now. And I just buy ebooks. That's great. But the ebook is just going to give you one quote after the next quote after the next quote. It will give you the question, but nowhere to write it. So you may think it, but you won't write it down. If I have a book in my hand because I stopped, I wrote it down, then I placed it on Twitter, then I pulled it back off, and I have it in a file, and now it's a book. That all came from thoughts and doodles. So if you don't take the time to doodle, then you're missing some opportunities, because this came from an idea, a simple little idea, right? And this book will allow me to go to universities. It'll allow me to travel. It'll allow me to do all these things. Once things are lifted, I'll be able to get back on my plan to market and push. But what I realize about quotes is quotes are borrowed and put into presentations. Quotes are quoted by people. Quotes are quoted by coaches, right?
Yes, they are. Yes.
But we still quote presidents long dead and gone. Roman gladiators long dead and gone. I said, so I knew quotes could live a lot longer than a book where I had to get one focused thought through, or else your book's all over the place. If I want to be seen as a thinker, how many books do I have to write to express some of the conversations that we've had. I'd have to write 15 some books.
Yeah.
Right. And stay on point, knowing I want to talk about something else that's relevant or a puzzle piece to that aspect. Then, so I said, if I just put out a series of quote books, people will be able to see the layers in my thinking.
Sure.
They'll see me beyond being a basketball player, which we talked about.
Right.
Right. And I'll be asked to participate in different endeavors as a thought leader, you know, as a critical thinker, as a creative thinker. And that's what I gained from speaking to 1 million plus people, is the psychology of connection. But they weren't all the same type of people, and they weren't from the same demographic communities. It was the run of the board, you know, from those who did not have to those who had some, those who had more than they think they had, or, you know, or vice versa. You know, those who were incarcerated, you know, to those that were socially isolated on reservations and also rural areas. So I realized these metaphors apply. These little simple analogies apply. They're universal. So that was the road work. So now my brain can take 20 years of that and come up with an idea for someone, and they'd be like, oh, you're just creative. No, it wasn't just creative. I'm putting together the dots very quickly because I've already done the work. Right. Like a boxer, they don't win in the ring. They win in that road work and that preparation to enter the ring. You see, so that's the part nobody sees. You know, so what I did was decided I'm going to provide you with 369 different vantage points of yourself. Mm. Each thought takes you somewhere. It's impossible to read something and not think something. Even if you say, I don't know what that means, there's a reason why you say you don't know what that means. So it's impossible. Everything has cause and effect. So I knew this book would cause an effect if you pick it up. But the effect was not to say, I want to impress you with my thoughts and my quotes. The effect is, I want you to see yourself, and I want you to see that way you think. Well, that was your great grandma said that to you when you were 4 or 5 years old, and it stuck, and you didn't realize, and you never challenged that thought to see whether it aligns with who you really are today, or whether it's something that you can grow from, or something that fosters a limited belief in yourself, your possibilities. And grandma loved you, but she might have loved you to the death of your development. There's a whole lot of people, I love my children to death. I'm like, but it shouldn't be to the death of their development. And that's something in the parenting section that I kind of go into.
Yeah.
So that's what.
Yeah, and that's great, man. And again, you have, and I'm going to flip through this a little bit, because you have, the way that you wrote this book is, let me get to it. The different chapters you have, basically, whether it's parenting, whether it's education, whether it's, relationships.
Yep.
We've had several conversations about those, man.
Yeah, well, exactly. And that lady Daisy that I mentioned, that was that spark when I needed it.
Yeah.
She said, she self-titled herself, I am your first quote fan. I said, is there such a thing as a quote fan? But okay, I'll take it. And she held me to it. She did two things for me. One, beyond challenging me, she read that first book of 99 quotes, because it took people there. I had 3 questions with every quote, and the 3 questions started taking people places they didn't really want to go. So I said, I'll publish that book when somebody in my circle completes it. And people would start, and then I wouldn't hear from them. And some people would start being ambitious, and I'd be like, oh man, they might get through it. 25 in, they're skipping pages and never finish. She said, when I start something, I finish it. So she's talking to herself, but she's talking to me.
Right.
She said, so I sent that to her as a gift one day. I didn't have a quote for her that day, and she was getting on me. I said, you know what? She said, and it's my birthday, and you didn't have a quote today. I said, hold on. I got a PDF of this old little book that I have not put out. I'm going to send her a gift. She printed it out. I have it in my office. She said, when I finish this, I'm going to send you all my answers, and you got to promise me you're going to publish this.
Wow.
And she said, and when you publish it, I want the second book out the box. So she got the second book out the box with something to think about. And I put a lot of the quotes that she helped inspire that came out long after the first 99. So that was a big part of just progressing and seeing how things could emerge. But she actually, aside from finishing the book, the second thing she did was she went and personally pulled every single quote off of Twitter for me, 1,100, pulled them into a Word file, then categorized them for me under life, under parenting, under politics. You see? So she did all that for me as a friend, because her expectation was, you will put this out to the world. Somebody could have charged me hundreds of dollars or $1,000. It'd have been worth it, because that was a lot of work to pull all that off for me. So she set up all the quotes for me to just be able to then set up the structure of the book and just slide them in right off a Word file. That helped me when I created the app. Think about it, which really were the same quotes from the book, which I knew was going to cover every day of the year, to be a daily quote app. And all I had to do was pull the quotes right off of there and right straight to the app developers. So she set me up. So I can't not mention all these people that come out of nowhere, and you realize that family goes a lot further than people with the same last name or tied to somebody in your bloodline.
Sure.
Family is action also. And I have to admit that there are people that made sure that my immediate family could eat. You help with that. She's helping with that. You see what I'm saying? So that's the thing. It's like, does your network have offer network? Does your network offer you net worth? Like, are people adding to your network in your network? Some people just got friends for friends' sake, and my thing is, your network should be working with you, working for you. You see what I'm saying? Not working against you. And that's what people got to realize also in this age of getting friends and getting likes. We want our network to engage with us, so we can engage each other and sharpen each other's skills. But we also got to push each other. If you know I can do more, push me. If I know you can do more, I'm gonna push you. And that's what happened. Somebody pushed me to do this book. Somebody made me make a promise, knowing that if I make you a promise, that I'm gonna stand by my word. So now I got to get this book done because I put my word on it with her, and I got to get the second book to her, right? And that's been done.
And I think the cool thing about that whole story in Daisy, good job, Daisy. Thank you for pushing him. Thank you for getting this out here to the world. But a lot of that, started with you encouraging, inspiring, helping someone else. And even in Daisy's, with her thing, you didn't know Daisy. you didn't know who she was, but because you are willing to put something out there, you are willing to just say, I'm going to put this out. I'm going to do what I need to do. It's for somebody. I'm helping somebody. I don't know who that somebody is, but it's going out into the universe and it's going to help somebody. It actually did.
It did.
And now, because of that, this person that it helped is now inspired, is now encouraged, is now, engaged, and now they actually turned it back around to help you.
Help me.
That's a really cool thing, man.
Exactly.
These things do.
And I think that also in this age, it's hard to go on YouTube. I'm not sure because everybody's algorithm is different. But when I go on YouTube, every time I go on, I press play on any video and some coaching or something pops up in my face. I'm like, hey, I can help you grow your mailing list. I can help you make $1 million. Hey, do you want to make money like me? I'm like, everybody's got their thing, right?
Right.
But my whole thing is everybody is racing to grow their online presence. And my thing is, are you working the people that are with you right now? Are you checking on them? Do you go and look in their profiles? Do you know that they got kids? Do you know what their likes are? Do you see when they got a down moment because they posting something that they're down? See, you got to take care of 10 as best you can and not worry about the million you want to get to. Right. And I'm eating right now, and this book is done right now because the first 5 people, I got to know them. The first 10 people, I got to know them. So up until about 200, I knew my tribe. Now it's more people that came in. It's hard to keep up, but my original crew, I know them, and they know that I know them, and they have their fingerprints on me. So my thing is, as you grow, get to know the people that are there with you when nobody knows where you're coming from. Nobody knows, how it started. Nobody knows you when it wasn't as polished. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. That core group is critical. But it's also critical for us to really work and inspire and work and see if there's ways that we can support them. You know, you're liking my quotes, but I see you posting about your children. So guess what? I'm going to make sure that I hit every picture I see that you all post, the family pictures, and the kids are doing well. They graduate, going from elementary to middle school to high school. I got to know that stuff,
Right.
or else it's a lopsided relationship, you know? And now I get to a point where, okay, the goal is to touch 1 million people online every day. So I created my own affirmation that I listen to every day. I don't plug in online and listen to somebody else read an affirmation to me. For me, actually, I know it's to my benefit, so I would hope so, but I'm like, I need to hear my own voice, speak into my own life, what it is I'm trying to accomplish. So part of that is being of service to people, is having a positive thought for 1 million people plus a day. So how do you do that without losing yourself? Because to lose yourself and gain the goal doesn't serve you nor the people that you're trying to serve. So automating that was important. So while the book was being published, I was able to, at that point when I was looking at people to do the cover, it popped up on my screen, having someone possibly do the app. And there was all lines leading to me working with Dante, your son, who has an amazing company with his friends. It's just that the book required so much of my investment that I was like, I can't do that with you guys just yet. But I had someone say, hey, from the UK, I can try to put together this app right now with what you're saying, you know, for a small amount of money. I said, well, I do have that, and I can add that to the promotion, at least to get something started. And if whatever, I know I can always have Dante clean it up. And these people did an amazing app. So I'm like, well, guess what? I can have Dante do the next app when this book does what it's supposed to do, where I do a whole interactive type of thing. Because he was coming to me with all kinds of stuff I could do, interactive. He said, because I know you, Johnny, so I know we got to get to the world. So I'm like, okay. He said, but we were talking about a $10,000, $20,000 app platform. I'm like, you better catch me while that money's still in the bank. you know.
Oh, man. And for those that don't know, Dante is my son. He's an app developer. That's what he does.
Yeah.
He has his own company. I mean, man, that's what he does.
Most
and he's
definitely.
excited about it.
Yeah, he's excited about it. And sometimes, you know, you want to do work with people, but you have to do it in scale, right? You got to do it in scale, and you got to do it in a way that it makes sense, because the price point that I got the app done would have been at the basic price point starting there. And we had so much more work to do. So, so this is where the internet makes things very competitive. We're no longer local, we're global, right? Because someone in the UK, my dollar, I don't know if the British pound or whatever is stronger than the dollar, whatever, he might have made less or might have made more off our US dollar, you know, but was able to, and I think this was his second or third app. So that was another thing that had to do with the price was, you know, and I said, look, for that price, I can go on and play with my quotes and just see what you get. But I knew that I just wanted simple brand recognition with the Think About It logo and the simple app. But as you know, in the book, every single quote has a message within the message. So there's a part of each quote that is put in bold. And that was because this attention span has shortened. Even as we get to the point where quotes are like, oh man, I got to read 2 sentences. So I said, okay, how about I give you what the quote's about before you even get to the last part of the quote, you know? So I highlighted in bold a message within each quote that just gives you something else to think about, just to show you that everything is layered. There's more to it than just this little short statement. So we were able to take those bold statements, and the app developer created an algorithm to make that a free daily statement, and then make the full quote a paid version. So that way it's almost like a different variation of the ebook. So essentially it was like an ebook, but the full quote would come out in app form as an ebook and pay. But the free thought of the day for all of our students who go home to different parents with different social, choices, it would allow them to get a catchy thought to keep them thinking, because that was the goal, was to sharpen your mental pencil, you know, and you know, I've spoken to students a lot with different metaphors,
right?
But none as simple as what I put on the back of the book. My mother said to keep life simple as a pencil, or pay the price for erasing her advice. And a lot of us have complicated our life. We've added drama to our life, right? And we have these American dreams, these aspirations, but we're not going to reach those dreams if, one, we don't write down the goal, write down the steps. But can you write with an unsharpened pencil? No. But that pencil still has purpose and potential. Right. It just must be sharpened, just like a student, just like an adult. You got to stay sharp or you will get dull. But the key thing in that whole pencil analogy for students and for adults is we only got but so much eraser. Back in our day, cartoons on Saturday morning, all that stuff, right? Black and white TV, turn to channel TV, right? We used to get big erasers. Information moved a lot slower. Now information moves at the speed of light, right? So that pencil now is symbolic of we only have but so much we can erase. Yeah. It's not but so many bad posts you can make that you can't erase that. Somebody saw that, right? You say something to somebody, they're going to remember that. You only got but so much, oops, I'm sorry, I messed up in this day. Lots of opportunity, lots of virtual, angles that we can pursue, but very little error, margin for error, because your errors are going to be out there, and people need to be thinking, because we can't be a reactionary society and engage this new digital age that's tracking and keeping up with everything, all your history. Yeah. All your social network names and the things you post, and that little funny little video you posted, that little meme you posted that was just funny today, but then tomorrow you want to run for politics and somebody goes back and pulls that up, it'll bite you in the butt. So margin for error is slight, and we gotta be aware of that. So we have to become a thinking nation, because right now we've been groomed to being very reactionary, and that's why I think it's kind of timely to come out with something to think about.
Yeah, I agree. And we're running a little bit short on time, so I just want to make sure I get a couple more things in. But man, this is phenomenal, and definitely going to have you come back again, because like you said, a lot of the quotes that you put in this book, a lot of the things that they're layered. They have so much into it, man. And I just want to read one real quick.
Okay.
And get your thoughts on this particular.
Okay.
I just pulled this out. This is on page 87. So everybody, I'm reading from page 87. This is the quote. It says, "There are so many options and great opportunities awaiting you just outside of your comfort zone." Again, there are so many options, great opportunities awaiting you just outside of your comfort zone. So that's the quote. And there's a lot of them in here, but that's one that I pulled out as I was looking at it, because it speaks to me, and I won't go into all the details, but that's one thing that even us sitting here talking right now is actually outside of the zone.
Yeah. I don't do the Zooms and everything like that, but I was like, Kurt, I'm at the practice, because this is probably how I'm going to do a lot of interviews right now coming up. So I got to figure this thing out. I was having some technical difficulties this morning trying to get this, and I was about to just shake the comfort zone and come right to the office. I was about to come right to the house, wasn't I?
Yeah, you were.
I said, I think I got to figure this out. And so, and I'm glad I did. But you're right. This right here was a comfort zone.
It was outside of our comfort zone. And, it's something for me that I've been talking about doing something for years. And, speaking, and I've had other people tell me that I can speak well, or I've talked to them and I have an easy way to about engaging in conversations. I listen, those types of things, but I never in a million years would have thought I would be doing or creating a show where I'm having a conversation, where I'm interviewing or talking with someone. This is totally outside of my comfort zone, but the opportunities are here.
But it's aligned, because your office was always laden with different people's self-help tools. You always kept 3 books on your desk at a minimum, and more on your shelf, that had to do with coaching, leadership, all those different things. And you could always reference what you liked about each book. And you would always tell me, "Hey man, you didn't have product. Where's your product?" I said, I'm gonna create it. So that urging, I always heard you, but you are always doing it. So to be able to kind of direct people to resources and highlight what you see in different people, you've always been looking and sifting through a lot more content than I did. I was so worried about writing somebody else's message that I would buy books, but not open them to read through them. I would just flip through, see what's on a page, see what's on the other page, read the end, and put it down, because like I got my own story in me, and I can read. I can always go back and read it, but not until I get my story out. Otherwise, I'm just regurgitating someone else's story. You see what I'm saying? I thought about writing a book of quotes, but most books of quotes, and our research, are the author of the book doesn't have one quote of their own in the book. It is 100% other people's statements. You see? So as a speaker being introduced by name to come and speak, if I merely recite great people throughout my speech, then it's like, well, what did you have to say? Because you didn't necessarily display what you had to say. You displayed a great memory of other people's great statements. And I wanted to be authentic, because I came here to be authentic, you know? And that's where I found strength in metaphors, being something that was visually connective, but at the same time, very sticky to the memory. So that was a stretch of my comfort zone, was going outside of the norm and not writing my speeches and not quoting other people's content in my speeches and letting it ride 100% on what it is I think and believe. And then creating a metaphor around it and hoping that people get it and not feel insulted by the simplicity of the metaphor, but the depth of how deep they can take it. And that created a whole lane for me of itself. But I remember doing a speech with you for your students where we had a box taped on the floor and saying, where's success? One step outside your comfort zone. And then I'd ask them again, after they took a step, where's success? One step outside your comfort zone. So why did you take a step? They take another step. Now, where's success? One step outside your comfort zone. So you're constantly stepping to stay successful. That was the whole concept. But when they can see it visually, it sticks a lot longer than us just saying something great that all the adults understood. But the kids heard it, but it didn't stick. And we wanted to make sure everything stuck with them, you know? So, yeah. So
that's great. That's great, man. That's one of my quotes that I really like.
Okay.
One of my favorite ones in the book. And I had to find it, but that was one of the ones I really enjoyed and stuck to it. So, man, before we leave here, I want to make sure that I share. We take a look at your website, because I want people to see this. Make sure I get to it. Can you see this screen?
Yeah, I can see it.
You can see it. Okay, so this, everyone that's watching this, that's listening to this is JohnnieWilliams.com. This is where Mr. Williams has put all of this information, his, everything that he has, he's put it in this, and it's really easy to get to. Again, JohnnieWilliams.com is where you can go. And we talked about the Something to Think About book, where you can purchase it right here. It says buy now. But it's not just think about it, although that's kind of what we focused on right now. Johnnie, he's the encouragement specialist. So he has car conversations. He has all these different things. He has the app that we talked about before that you can get. And then you have the different merchandise. So it's not just about the book, that's what we want to focus on, but you can really go and look and be a part of purchasing all these other this merchandise that has the Think About It logo, the Think About It little guy with the hat on. Tell us a little bit more about what you have on this website, Johnnie, so that everybody knows what they're looking at.
Okay, so right below the merchandise, you have a contact form. So just ask Johnnie. So if you got a question, you want to engage me, we are approachable. It's best to approach Kirk and I while we still have the time to get to every message ourselves. So now is the time. Now is not the time to say, he probably wouldn't have time to respond to me. Step outside your comfort zone. So we're going to borrow from the quote that you cited, Kirk. Step outside your comfort zone and just send me a message. If you want to access that Twitter account that has all of my 1,100 quotes, you see, before I ever tried to sell a book, I always made sure I was going to be a selfless public servant. All the quotes that I've ever written with the images that aren't in the book are right here on this particular page. So the book is still free, but the book offers you the 369 that I wanted to start with It offers a writing prompt. It offers you space to chronicle your thoughts in one space, in one place. And who knows what type of light bulb idea you may come up with just by sitting with yourself for 369 different moments to just work with a thought, because many people will say they have noisy minds. I just can't settle my mind.
Yeah.
So, we got to become the master over our mind. Our mind should not be our master. And a lot of people are like, hey, I can't get my mind to stop racing. My mind is all over the place. I said, well, who's in control? It's your mind, right? You got to remind yourself that it is my mind. And sometimes it takes practice, because the world is a very noisy place filled with visuals and lots of messaging, and everybody's agenda is coming at you. You got to be able to focus. And I think that's one thing basketball taught us, Kirk. When the people waving the little flags and the balloons behind the basket, you got to hit that free throw, and everybody's focused on you. And you got to just be able to see your target and focus on your mechanics.
Right.
And I think sometimes athletics can really help people hyper focus. It's just when you get lost in athletics and you never learn to apply that in other places, you don't really prosper as you should. Falling short of professional sports is one thing, but falling short of being a professional, period, in something, using those skills, that's where the tragedy, I think, is. So right here is where you end up on my author page at Book Baby. I'd self-published the book, and I like to mention that because, again, I was able to take the whole process. Yeah, I was able to process the whole thing in my head, because my book is a hybrid. So I could have spent the next 2 years trying to get major book retailers to sign me to a deal, but I'd be signing over the rights to my work. And then they determine when, after giving me a royalty, when they were going to put it out. So you want to be able to sometimes self-publish your own work so that you can take total control. Okay. So for me, it was very important to maintain ownership of my work. But at the same time, I didn't want it to look as if I self-published. So the product should not look like it was self-published. Right. And that's something that I can one day sit and come back and talk to you about, the process and how I went ahead and how I found the people to create the cover and found the right ideal, print on demand site that would make sure everybody's book came like it was first straight off the shelves of Barnes and Noble. But this organization also took my product to those outlets, virtual and store shelves. So that's another positive plus for who I chose to go with.
Man, and I think that's going to be a great opportunity for a lot of those that are watching, those that are listening, to be able to get that kind of in-depth information of how to get this published by Johnnie Williams. That information that's going to be important for a lot of people. I think we need to do that. I think we need to set up something where we can have you teach and show individuals how they can actually do this. Because a lot of people have books, have ideas, have things inside of them, and they just don't know how to do it. They just don't, and they may not have the encouraging person behind them saying, here you go, you can do this, you can do this. They may be looking for a Johnnie Williams to help them, not only encourage them, but also, hey, here are the step-by-step things that I did, and you can do it too. It's not, so that's something I think we should really consider, putting you in front of a lot of people, a lot of those that are watching and listening to this, and giving them how you set this up. Because I think it's phenomenal. And a lot of people want this and need it.
Sounds good. You got my word on that.
For sure. So, man, Johnnie, I just want to thank you very much for this opportunity, for coming on to the Live Inspired show and chatting with us, talking with us. You gave us so much. And I really hope people that are watching, that are listening to this, feel the encouragement, feel the inspiration, feel the genuineness that you have displayed here today, because I've felt this for the past 11, 12 years with you. And I hope we were able to help somebody else with what you've given. So I appreciate it. Thank you, man.
No problem. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So again, everyone, that's it. Johnnie Williams. Make sure you go to his website, johnniewilliams.com. pick up the book, Something to Think About. And I have my copy. You guys need to get your copy, and all the other merchandise. And then, there's a lot of things on that website too, whether you need to talk with Johnnie about your ideas, whether we didn't even talk about what's it called? The confidant coach.
Yeah, the confidant coach.
We didn't even talk about that. There's so much that you can get from this gentleman, this awesome gentleman, and really want you to go. But JohnnieWilliams.com is where we want you guys to go. So with that said, I thank you guys for watching today. I want you to be encouraged. Life is good. Even when you feel like it's not, it's still good. Stay positive, because nothing comes good from a negative mindset, negative attitude. And last but not least, definitely want you to live an inspired life, because we want you to live an inspired life so you can help somebody else be inspired. And with that said, thank you very much. Have a great day. God bless you. And that's it. We'll see you next time. All right. So with that said, Johnnie, that's it.
All right, brother. That was good. Nice and easy.
Nice and easy. So thank you. That's
no problem, man. So we'll see what it looks like when you play the recording. And you better upload the recording. Where will you better put the recording?
Yeah, so it comes in a link. It's like in the cloud somewhere.
Okay.
So when Zoom finishes with recording it, processing it, then they'll give me a link to say it's ready. So I'll just shoot the link and you can take a look at it.
Okay.
And I'm not going to post it. I'm going to send it to you, and we'll see. All I'm doing is looking to see how it works.
Okay.
Whether we post it or not,
why not?
I don't know, but we can.
Why not? Might as well. I don't know what you're waiting on.
I can throw it up there. We can post it. And, my last, Eddie, who I interviewed the other day, he's more reserved. Mm-hmm. So he didn't want me to post it, although he wanted the link so he can see it. Yeah. But I was just trying to practice. I had no idea what I'm doing with it, but I don't have a problem. I'm an open book, so I don't have a problem posting anything.
Yeah,
so I would have done it live.
Yeah. No, I thought we were going to be live, so that's fine. No, go ahead and post it and see the kind of feedback. And like I said, we need to come back and do it again. That's fine. We got lots of topics because we can go through each section of the book. We can do different things. So whenever there's a shortage of a person interview, we just come back on and we take on another piece.
Yeah. I think that would be great. And then also, man, you mentioned the talking about the how-tos, how you actually did this process. Man, have you considered creating a course on that?
Not really till we just said that. No. I have other courses, but no, to think about. But no, I hadn't really thought about it. I just wanted to make sure I mentioned it because my main goal was to make sure it did not look like it was any different than anything you see on the shelf at the regular traditional bookstore.
Right.
So for years when I'm traveling, I'm always walking past those little spots in the airport where they got the books in the you got the treats and all that stuff, but they got the books. I would always go in the bookstore and just walk the aisle, and I might buy one every time I took a flight, just to say one day somebody will stop by mine. So I'm gonna buy somebody, so I don't expect what I'm not doing, but I need to make sure I see what level I need to be presenting. Sure. But I don't need to become them, and I don't need to compare myself with them. I just need to say, make room for me and my product. But the biggest thing I wanted to do was create a book with no fluff and know that it was going to be such a hybrid that it may take a time to kind of catch, but because it's quotes have a long shelf life. So I didn't want to put out something that was going to expire, and I had to really be panicky and try to push this book while it's relevant. So I chose 5 subjects that I knew: race, gender, age, life, politics, playground politics, basketball politics, church politics, family politics, politics, right? All that stuff kind of plays into everybody's life. And then you got parents. So no matter how you find yourself with feelings of, relationships now taking on much different complexions and layers, everybody's opinion is still birthed from the cycle of a mother and father bringing another life into this world. So I don't have to have an opinion. I don't even have to present it. But I know that parents brought us all into this world to think how we want to think, to opt how we want to opt.
Yeah.
So, so we all have parents, but that's the gift of life, is two can bring another one into this world.
Mm.
Now, then from there, you go on to education. So what are you going to teach this life you bring into this world? Right? And it has 4 circles: elementary, middle, high school, college, or post-secondary. So the 4-year cycles of education.
Right.
So then from there, you go get education so you can get a job, so you can achieve, you can be successful. So 5 circles, the Olympic rings. Well, that's great. So what are your 5 core relationships? You know, your parents, your wife. At age, parents and wife switch, right? Or husband. But then you got your best friend, you got your siblings, you got your working relationships, you got your educators. All these are currency, right? But people can tell you about all their outer relationships, but they forget the 6th circle is the palm holding them all together. They all relate to self. They all relate back to self. Whoever you put on these 5 fingers, they all relate back to you. But do you have a relationship with yourself? That's why the book goes back to 369 steps to self-awareness. You don't know who you are because you're trying to operate in relation to the relationships you're in.
Yeah.
So you think in a relation to what keeps you connected to these people. So sometimes we self-confine. So we're thinking that we're in confinement right now and we're, quarantined. We've self-quarantined mentally long before we were quarantined physically. You see?
Yeah.
So these are things to think about. So how can we have these critical conversations when you're talking to reactors and you're trying to think with reactors? So you got to invite them to the table to think. So you got to give them a tool to practice their jump shot before they go to court with us.
There you go.
Right. So it was a strategic move to say, let's build a whole platform around thinking and make a habit of thinking. Because right now it's a habit of reacting and calling it thinking. What people think about is the outcome that's opposite of what they wanted. Then they think that I shouldn't have done that. But what if you could think in real time and get to the point where you think so quickly that your thinking looks to someone like it's a reaction, but because you put pre-thought to it, pre-practice to it, it's like you getting that ball, just shoot it. You don't even have to think about it because you've already in the gym. You already know exactly what you got to do. So that's the thing.
It is.
Most people don't practice thinking.
It's really good, man.
So that's what it really was about, was trying to create a whole platform for that and come up with that life is good type of feel with the logo being so simple of a stick figure that it invites everyone to the table. Thinking is not for them, it's for you. And then connecting it down to, I don't know if I give you one of these pencils?
No.
All right, well, this little pencil right here got the little checkerboard on it. So everything is black and white, but it says think about it on one side. And then we don't say IDK on the other. So it's a custom pencil I had made. So I got custom pencils, man. I got playing cards, like play spades, think about it cards, you know what I mean?
Oh, very cool, man.
So I got different things that I haven't even released yet, based on everything that's going on. It's not the time to be really pushing certain things.
Sure.
Because I know each week that this goes on, people find themselves in a different place.
Right.
So you might be safe from one version of the flu, but you're catching a financial flu. Either it's you tip into the savings, or you started this in a crisis because you weren't prepared financially for this.
Right.
Financially for your job to go away. Financially to have to fill your refrigerator with food. You see, and they haven't done a great job on the news of telling that American story. Everybody wasn't prepared. And it's easy in our community to look around everybody. How you doing, neighbor? Neighbor's doing good. But some people on retirement income, and they're going to be doing good. Some people had a nest egg. But you go further down Eastern, and everybody wasn't prepared for this. Some people are already behind life, and nobody's really talking about that, And now you got a whole bunch of people being invited to what I call the welfare state, a welfare mentality. Go ahead and apply for a stimulus and this and that. I said, all they're doing is sucking people in, and it may help some people, but it's not going to help in the big scheme of things. One little check is not going to make up for 4 checks like that in a month.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? But it's drawing the dependence, and they're engaging independent people into this dependency mindset that our people have already been the litmus for.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they call them projects, because we were projects. We were lab rats. Mm-hmm. Can you get them to stay in place? Can you get them to stay confined? Can you get them not to think beyond? Can you tell them their own story? All these things, we have been a litmus. So the group of people that are best prepared for this mentally is us. Mm. The group of people who know you better kind of watch the wolf